Hey there, what is up guys? Welcome to Activism on the Fly, my portal to becoming a better ally, advocate, and activist. My name's Tony. If you don't know me or want to know what this is all about, please go ahead and click that welcome video on my page. It's easy to find because there is only one other video. So appreciative of the response that I got to the welcome video. I have some new subscribers, which is so amazing. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. I really appreciate the support and I hope that you can get something useful out of this. So I thought that a good way to keep up my accountability with myself and to make good on the promise of documenting all of my actions taken would be to do a recap of the week video. So I'm going to tell you guys all the little things that I've done this week to further my education and my activism journey. I'll leave links to all of the petitions, GoFundMes, etc. so that if you guys want to contribute to any of those, sign one of the petitions, or read some of these resources, then you can feel free. So one thing that is helping me along this journey is, nerd alert, my activism notebook. Yes, I have an activism notebook. I thought since I'm going to be taking kind of a million little steps, looking at different resources and trying to tell you guys about them after, I should probably remember what I've done. So I have my week in review right here. I've also found that every resource that I start reading, it's almost like a travel list or a reading list where at the end I don't feel like I accomplished this and now I understand this. I just get more recommendations for other resources. So it's kind of like how when you travel to one place, it's not like, oh, check off the list. It's like, oh, well, now I've heard of 5 more places I want to see that I didn't know of before. So I have written down resources that I want to check out later. And one of the reasons, I have a tendency to feel like I haven't done enough, like in every aspect of my life, which is a conversation for probably a therapist and not for here on YouTube. But I feel like being able to look back at all the little steps taken in aggregate will be a good picture of time well spent. So without further ado, what did we do this week? 1. Protests. This week I went to 2 different protests. I went to one Black Lives Matter protest in Boston, Mass. This was May 31st, and the second protest was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, this past Sunday. So everything about them was completely different, which was really awesome to get to be a part of both and see different styles of how protests might look. The protest in Boston started in the evening. We marched all through the city to the State House. There were more people than I have ever seen in the streets of Boston, and it was incredible. This was towards the beginning of when protests started sweeping the nation, so it was very raw and emotional, and people were definitely angry and upset, but also there was such a sense of unity between all the protesters. It was visceral in the air. It was a really, really incredible experience to be a part of. The end of the march to the State House, everybody could not fit in front of the State House because there were so many people. They were spilling over to side streets. The entire Commons was packed full of people. People were down on one knee. Everybody was holding their cell phone flashlight up. Most of the time that we were there, until about 10 o'clock, things were very peaceful and it was like everyone was pretty much on the same page. After dark, it did get a little more intense, and one police car ended up being set on fire. There was looting, a riot. I'm not really sure how I feel about using this terminology, and I think maybe I would do a separate video to address that topic. So, the next protest was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. If you have never been to New Hampshire, you should know that New Hampshire is lily white. I'm really white, but New Hampshire is like really white. So it was a very white protest. But you know what? Allies help win wars. This protest was completely different. It was during the day. My friend Megan and I got there at noon. It was centered in one town square, so there wasn't any marching and it was limited to just one area. There were police around, but none were wearing any military gear. There were no armored vehicles. It just wasn't that kind of scene at all. They had speakers. There were religious leaders that spoke. I'm not religious at all, but it kind of felt like being at church in the best way possible. They had performers, musicians. It was really nice. Another thing that was really nice was that in Lily White, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I didn't see any counter protesters. Second thing this week, petitions. One was to demand that the officers responsible for Breonna Taylor's death be arrested, and the other was also related to the Breonna Taylor case, and it was a petition to end no-knock warrants. If you don't know what I'm talking about at all in terms of Breonna Taylor and no-knock warrants, please read, educate yourself. Breonna Taylor was killed in her home in the middle of the night when police were executing a no-knock warrant, meaning that they did not knock on her door first before entering. They did not identify themselves as police, while Taylor and her boyfriend thought that they were being burglarized in the middle of the night. The boyfriend fired one shot from his legal gun, ended up getting a police officer in the leg, and they fired back, I think it was 20 rounds, and Breonna Taylor is dead today. Now, they were executing this search warrant for a person that was not Breonna Taylor nor her boyfriend. They were executing this search warrant in the middle of the night. They were executing the search warrant for an individual who previously had been arrested earlier that day and was already in police custody. I'm going to provide a link so that you can get a little more information. I'm going to provide links to both of these petitions. I think they're both super important. No-knock warrants are just super dangerous, and this case was not the first time that someone has accidentally been killed or injured. That happening even one time is unacceptable, but it happens a lot more than that. Anyway, resources below. The third petition was over the phone. I called Senator Rand Paul to petition him to support the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which would make lynching a federal crime. Donations. I donated to Black Lives Matter. I donated to the Loveland Foundation, which is a foundation founded by Rachel Cargill, a Black woman activist, academic, and entrepreneur. What the Loveland Foundation aims to do is to support communities of color, and specifically what they're focused on is women and girls of color. Black women and girls in our country face a lot of trauma often and don't always have the resources to have therapy, someone to talk to, or other healing processes. The Loveland Foundation aims to make mental health care accessible to women and girls of color. I made that donation in honor of Breonna Taylor on her birthday this week. I didn't donate to Breonna Taylor's GoFundMe, but I had already donated to George Floyd's, and when I looked at Floyd's, it was way more, something like 16 million. His family wrote out in the GoFundMe page what all the money will be used for: funeral expenses, legal expenses, travel, money to support his daughter. I think in a lot of these cases where a lot of money is raised for the family, they end up doing charitable work in their loved one's name or setting up foundations or things like that. I'm struggling with this because I'm not exactly sure what the right thing is. I felt kind of guilty after I didn't donate directly to Breonna Taylor's GoFundMe. What do you guys think? Should you always donate directly to the victim's specific GoFundMe or fundraising page? Is it your call to make, or do you have discretion over wherever you think your money will make the most impact? Is that messed up to choose one organization to donate to over like direct GoFundMe? What are your thoughts on this? Can you leave it in the comments? Let me know. Let's see, you thought I was going to help you, but really you're going to help me. I hope. So the last donation I made was to Ayanna Dior's Cash App. It was kind of a pain in the ass actually because I don't have Cash App. I have Venmo, but I downloaded Cash App. If you don't know who Ayanna Dior is, she's a Black trans woman who was beaten by a mob of about 30, mostly Black men, in Minneapolis at a Black Lives Matter protest decrying the killing of George Floyd. This will be a separate video as well. I think it's worth going into all of the LGBTQIA community, and being Black in America, I think it's very intersectional. But very briefly, if you're going to say that Black Lives Matter, you have to have it in your heart to mean all Black lives. When you are fighting against oppression, you cannot be oppressing another group. It's unacceptable, and people need to wise up. I don't know if this is my place from the comfort of my home, probably not, but hey, you know what? I'm going to advocate on behalf of Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, LGBTQIA Lives Matter. We need to accept everybody in this community as part of this community. She is a woman, she is a Black woman, and she deserves to be lumped into this grouping of Black Lives Matter. She matters. Okay, last, I must confess I've been doing a lot of social media education. I've been clicking through some of these awesome graphics that other activists of color have posted onto their social media accounts, and then kind of following the wormhole from there and clicking through more actual articles and things to read. So I've been kind of acquainting myself with some Black, mostly women activists. Yes. And I'm following some really great accounts now that are providing snippets of good information. I did read an article in The Atlantic called "Who's Allowed to Be Afraid in America?" The Atlantic usually has really good thought-provoking pieces. I'll leave a link to it. I'm sorry, I forget the author's name. One thing I started looking into, which I'm also going to provide a separate video for, is defunding the police. What does it mean? Let's get beyond the hashtag type of thing. More to come on that later. Overall, this week has been a really great week for jumping in and getting my feet wet in this activism world. I have a few different ideas for new video topics, but if you have an idea for something that you want to learn more about, you want me to learn more about for you, you want me to make a video about, let me know in the comments below, please. If you did like this video, please go ahead and hit like, let me know you did. And if you'd like to follow along for more videos on becoming a better ally, advocate, and activist, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. I would so appreciate your company. That's it, folks. Thanks again for stopping by. Activism on the fly.